What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is January 8th, 2026, and I am joined by Beth, Andy, and Brian. I'm happy to be back. I've been out a few days. I've been doing all the editing, so I have been seeing some of the shows and stuff like that. I saw that Anne was in over the last couple of days. It was super sweet of her to come in and support us, but happy to be back. Good morning to Brian in the comments as well. Great name, as always. I was just telling you guys before we went live, I was just saying I was on site with a client. I thought I would share this with everybody just as a sort of a starter here for our Thursday. But, they always say, like, if you're going to go to a client's place of business, and you don't exactly know like the dress culture or whatever, you always go above. Or at least that's the way I always grew up. I mean, you definitely don't want to be under, right? You don't want to be underdressed. I knew it wasn't a three-piece suit kind of place, but I did have a button down and slacks and dress shoes on. And I was telling Andy and Beth, laughing because I got in my head about this. I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but the place I was at had all very industrial, kind of a very cool headquarters. And it had all concrete floors. And I was just telling these guys that I was the only one that made noise while I was walking because I had dress shoes on and everybody else wore sneakers. And if anybody is old enough to remember, not all, there's people old enough to remember, but if anybody remembers the fire episode from Cheers, when I think Norm or Cliff get a deal on sneakers, it's a very famous episode. But if you were a Cheers fan from back in the day, from the 80s, and they give everybody these discounted sneakers, but they squeak. And then there's a potential fire alarm, and they go, fire, fire. And all you hear on Cheers is like, squeak, 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 squeak. Oh, it's a false alarm. Squeak, 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 as they all go back to the bar. And it's what was playing in my head, guys, as I was walking around on Monday. Now, Tuesday, I wore sneakers and I was silent. But on Monday, I was the only one making noise for 6 floors of concrete in this headquarters. And so talk about getting in your head about it. You're saying that's you, Beth. I was like, what are they asking about the dress code for an AI consultant? Yeah, I don't know. A hoodie and a sport jacket. It's so hard these days. I don't know if you guys have dealt with that, especially in the AI space. People don't get overly dressed up anymore. You're not going to see people showing up in suits, at least in not our industry or whatever. So it's always a tricky thing to figure out how to show up correctly dressed for clients. And while I'm happy I was above the threshold and not below it, tough. Hey, morning to everybody else in there. Wanted to give it a second for everybody to come in. Morning, Brian. Morning, Greg. Morning, Jen. Got a few other people in here. So I will tell you guys the one term, and maybe you guys have talked about this already, so we don't have to as far as news, but the 2 words that have come up so much in all my stuff over the last couple of days is Claude Code. I don't. Ethan Malik just put out a great email about that as far as his one useful thing Substack that he has. By the way, I always say this, but I love that Ethan Malik has a paid subscription, but you literally get nothing extra for the paid subscription. And he's like, yeah, you just do it because you want to give me money. And I was like, I appreciate the honesty. Like, I'm not offering anything extra ever. You're just sending me money because you like what I do. But anyway, he had a great thing about it. So have you guys talked like over like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week about sort of this like big push in Claude Code? I'll tell you where I've seen it, and I definitely want to dive in deeper, is Claude Code plus MCP server. I'm sorry, let me try that again. Not MCP server, N8N's MCP. Mm-hmm. Because I've seen that there's like a 1-2 punch of creating really good full workflows in N8N using Claude Code, because the MCP for N8N has all the templates in it.
Right. And Claude and workflows are essentially JSON documents.
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
Like you can create them in any of the things. It's just, are the things knowledgeable enough to be helpful, right? To create workflows that work out of the box. We've talked a little bit about it, but one of the things that happened that is part of this blowing up is that Andre Karpathy used Claude Code and wrote about it.
Right.
And wrote like, whoa, dev work and coding has dramatically changed, right? Like I feel he wrote that he felt like he was really behind.
Yeah, I saw that post, yeah.
And that was like, I don't know, when he talks, people listen, right? So that was part of why this is becoming a big thing, but also because it's deserved. And in fact, they just
Mm,
updated it yesterday. What is time in the age of AI? There was a series of updates, and it's a huge list.
mm.
And the guy who coded it, Boris Cherny, maybe, has been asking, like, is there anything else you want? Right? Like, tell me what you want
I love
out
that.
of this. And a ton of like really small, I don't know, they're small. We know that he gives the thing to Claude, right? Like, he's like, hey, that's a good idea. It's done. Over an
Yeah.
hour because Claude just coded it and now
Isn't
it's
that
part of
amazing?
Claude code.
That's the
Um,
Prometheus thing right there. He's
yeah,
doing it right now. Pretty soon, Claude Code's like, great idea, done.
right.
It's like there's like a half a second pause in Claude Code's like created, done, pushed on
Right.
GitHub. Y'all are welcome.
And I'll just remind you that over the weekend, a principal engineer at Google published on X, I believe, that she had taken advantage of the holiday period to actually use Claude Code to replicate work that her entire team had done over the prior year. And it did it in 1 hour. Now,
Jeez.
it didn't do, the full production version, but it basically architected and delivered a working sort of minimum viable product of what they had struggled over for a
Right.
year. And the
Yeah.
other aspect of Claude Code's emergence or like explosion here is that Claude Code itself is a harness. It has to work with a model, and that model is Claude Opus 4.5. And so Andre Carpathy and others who have commented about this have said, if you haven't played with Claude Opus 4.5 recently, then you aren't caught up with just how amazing
Mm.
these models are now. So
Right.
marry Claude Code and the architecture of that to Claude Opus, and it's just an astounding combination.
And that's what Ethan Malik was saying in his. I know it's much earlier where you are, Andy, than it is me, so I had time to read the email of his post. But regardless, in it, he points out that it is very much this future state that we've been talking about forever. This parent-child sub agent, sub skill. I mean, skills obviously have been in the news for a bit here, and we've talked about it a lot on the show. But his point is there's some magic tricks here that Claude Opus 4.5 can do, and the fact is, Claude Opus 4.5 isn't trying to be the model for everything. It knows it doesn't have to. I mean, the Anthropic knows it doesn't have to be the model that solves all things. It doesn't have to be hyper intelligent in all areas. All it has to do is know which agent to go find that is detailed in those areas. And when you layer that in the way at least he was reading it, and I'm not talking from an area of, oh, I've built 10 things with Claude Code. I certainly am going to. And I mean, hell, me and Karl are going to meet up later today to talk about it. And I joined somebody's school, SKOOL, their site, because he had some training videos on it. And this goes for anybody. If you're in my position, like I'm one of the co-hosts of this show, and I've been on most of the 600 plus episodes we do. But you can't do everything in AI. So when you come up, if anybody feels like I do, where it's like, oh, I've been focusing over here and building some really amazing things. I've been building in Lovable, and I've been building agents. I just spent 2 days at a client's, like as I was saying, at their headquarters, creating and talking to all their sales departments and coming up with novel new ways to solve their problems, right? So that's where my focus has been. But then I go, ooh, I'm feeling behind on Claude Code. Like I should know a thing or two. And so first of all, if anybody out there is feeling like that and they're listening to us talk about Claude Code, and you're like, man, I don't know a thing about Claude Code. Hey, right here. Right. And that's the point of this show is like we bring these things up. And a lot of times we're bringing it up because one of us, all of us also feel that way. So I can just tell you what I'm going to do is it's going to be an emphasis of mine. I have other things going on, other projects I'm working on and Lovable and stuff. So I can't put 20 hours towards it. But over the next week or two, I'm definitely going to be playing with it. And so what I would ask you guys based on what you know of it is if you're where I am, would you start in the desktop version where it's a little bit nicer UI, or would you start in what I would call like the DOS prompt version of it, which is a little less grainy, but from what Ethan Malik was saying, also has all the features versus the desktop has some, but eventually all the features. Have you guys heard anything, or do you know of a reason why you would start in one or the other?
Yeah, well, I load them both up. Basically, you're going to launch Claude Code in terminal. That's where it lives. And so that's going to be, you're going to install using the terminal, but don't do one or the other. Use them both at the same time. Get the desktop, talk to the desktop. It's an easier chat interface than is the terminal, right? Terminal does require, slightly different syntax in some ways, right? But now you have Claude, which has access to Claude Code, and it can tell you what to do in Claude Code in terminal if you want to work with your file system. But it can also do some things with your file system, but you'll have to go through some process to create those connections. So use them both. That's what I've ended up with on my new machine. Is I have terminal and Claude desktop running simultaneously.
And the other thing that you can do, first of all, like if you're scared of the command line interface, make friends with it, because what this is showing us is that the biggest advances are actually coming from developers who are creating tools for themselves, and then their organization says, cool, let's release it, right? That's literally how Claude Code got created. Boris Jyunmi did post, like, people are asking how I use it. This is how I use it.
What's the name? Can you give me the name again?
Boris Jyunmi, and I will see if I can pull it up.
He's the Anthropic engineer who built.
Okay, he's the lead.
Yeah, literally coded himself a tool, like what I just said. He coded himself a tool, and then people were like, "Hey, that's a very cool tool," and then, "Hey, let's release that." Right?
Gotcha.
And that is the recommended workflow. Solve a problem for yourself. But yes, so many of the things are coming out for devs first. So the more familiar you can get with a command line interface, which is what Brian's referring to as looking like a DOS screen.
That's command line interface is the right word for it. Green NC DOS is what I think of.
If you've never used terminal before, and there are, I'm sure, certain people listening to this who don't know what that is, on your desktop or on your laptop, like if you're using a Mac, for example, you go to applications and you go to utilities. You probably, many users have never opened up utilities. There's a bunch of different programs in there that are system utilities. One of them is called terminal, which is the command line interface to the processor in your machine. So you can access, without an application, you can access the code of your machine. And that's what terminal does. Now, when you install Claude Code, it actually opens a new terminal interface, which is someone described as, it looks like an 80s DOS interface, but it has, because the terminal UI doesn't have graphics and canvas and all those other niceties, it can't present things in a beautiful way. But there are ways to create, and one of the things that I want to add to my list of things that I'm adding to Claude Code is, and I was told this by Karl last night on Slack, is there's a thing where you can implement a canvas for Claude Code, so it can present things in a UI that's slightly better than the terminal interface. But try it. Just go to your utilities folder. Look for terminal. It'll be listed in the T's.
Sure, yeah.
Right. Click on it, and it opens up a little window, and now you're in the terminal. And then you ask Claude Code, or ask Claude Desktop, what's the command I need to give to install Claude Code, and it'll give you a copy it. What? Go ahead, Beth.
So on Windows, it's a little more complicated. We don't have a terminal. It's PowerShell. there's a lower version of PowerShell, but use PowerShell. But in Windows, like go to the Claude resources section on Anthropic, and there is now a Windows install thing, because it doesn't run natively on Windows, or it didn't. You had to do some, like you're installing and it's putting it in a specific environment. And Gareth, not Gareth, Greg, do you need to code? Do you need to learn to code? Really? Thank you, Greg. No, what I think we're saying, what I'm saying is you don't need to learn to code the way that phrase meant 4 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. What we are recommending is that you learn to use the coding interface with Claude, because you don't actually need to learn to code. I did a workshop with every.to. They are an organization, and they did a Claude Code for beginners. And what they did was give us a CSV of banking data that we could give to Claude Code. And the command was build a personal interface that shows this data in a variety of ways, like super simple, not saying anything. And Claude Code worked for between 5 and whatever number of minutes, and everybody got a dashboard. Everybody's dashboard was slightly different, but that's what we mean by learn to use Claude Code. Now, all kinds of reasons don't give anything your banking data if you don't know this was fake banking data. But data in a CSV, there are lots of reasons to use it. There are lots of examples, and in fact, you can do all kinds of things that have nothing to do with code. It's just really great at building the tools that that are frustrating, right?
And I'll add to that. I think you're 100% right. So that would be my answer to Greg as well. But I'm basically in the same camp as you, Beth. I think it goes back to like basic prompting. Do I still, is a prompt engineer a thing? Is it? I don't know. Most people would probably say that came and went before it was actually ever. Maybe some people were hired as it, right? But why would you want to know basic prompting? Well, I still teach basic prompting even when I'm teaching my agent courses to sales folks, because you still should, in my opinion, have a basic understanding of the building blocks. Now, if you don't want to keep up with the latest and greatest of maybe what the devs are putting out, then maybe not. Maybe there's not a need for you, and you can just play the waiting game, because by the time you feel like you're going to need it, there is going to be a really maybe the Claude Code desktop already is a great UI, but maybe something even better is going to come out. It's very drag and drop. We see this all the time. So it's really like, where do you want to be? Where do you want to go play? Where do you want to go discover? Do you need to learn how to code? No, I don't think so. To build things, you can go into Lovable right now and just start typing. And there's other tools like that where you can do that as well. Hell, you can do it in Gemini, right? You could just start typing and say, build me this. Claude, we've been able to do that for months and months and months, maybe over a year now. Build me this application or whatever. So no, but things are going to break. Things aren't going to work. These tools are getting much better. Ethan Malik, again, just talked about that in his one useful thing about how Claude was able to fix itself more readily. How when it got to the end of a context window, it would auto summarize and automatically start up its own new chat window to get around a context issue. So these systems are getting much, much smarter and getting around these. But we're still in the early days of this. And so it really, to me, depends on where are you in your journey with AI. There's probably plenty of reasons why you should not learn how to read any bit of Python or JS. I was just building mermaid.js for Lucid charts over the last 2 days. Do I know how to write that JS? No. I know how to read it, and I know how to deploy it and create net new Lucid charts, and that's valuable, right? So it just depends.
So I'm going to say sort of, right? It is helpful to be able to keep your brain on when you're looking at the stuff, which is, I think, what Brian is saying, that you start to see the patterns. So one of the JSON, you have something, build something in JSON. One of the JSON things that AI chatbots like to screw up is not including the commas or including too many commas, right? Like there's a pattern. And so it's helpful to be able to just look at it and go, all right, yep, this is a whole list of things, except this one doesn't have a comma after it. And I just got an error message. So let's put the comma in and see if that's what needs to happen, because once it's generated something, it's not necessarily going to find the mistake. We've talked about it a bunch. Andy has his path where he says, ooh, your competitor just screwed this up, so we're going to give you a shot at figuring out what is wrong about that. So all of this is helpful if you're not just like sitting back and being passive and saying, I don't understand any of this, because you can start to see the patterns, which is a level of understanding before you could write it natively.
I love that.
So, yeah.
Perfectly said as far as I'm concerned. Learn the patterns. You're absolutely right. That's what I can do with JSON. That's what I can do with Python. That's what I can do with a lot of those kind of code things. I'm not fluent, but I understand the patterns. We could extrapolate this to my understanding of Spanish over French. I do not understand patterns in French or German. My wife does. And so she can look at a really long word, what to us in English looks like a very, very long word of characters. In German, my wife can go, well, but that's just, there's no spaces. But that's actually 6 words. And I understand the pattern of why it would look like that. And she could look at a building and go, well, that's the pharmacy. Because it's this plus this plus this plus this, but there's no pluses and there's no spaces. That's kind of how German is written sometimes, right? French, she could do the same thing. I can't. But because I live in the US, because I've been around Spanish most of my life, I understand patterns in Spanish, but I'm not fluent in it. I just understand the patterns. It's a basic, to your point, Beth, it's a basic understanding before fluency, before being able to write it from scratch. I have plenty of friends who can write SQL like they can write a letter. I mean, they just type and it's SQL. I will never spend the time to go to learn that. I don't think I need to, but I agree with you. Anyway, is my point at. Okay. Anything else on Cloud Code? I know there's kind of a way long discussion about that, but it just seemed like such a big topic that I wanted to see where you guys landed on it.
Yeah, one other comment, which is this: the ability of Claude Code to do something over a long period of time is in part because it is now a prime example of what are called recursive language models, which instead of taking a prompt and then outputting a response, they slice up the prompt and then consider that as, sub tasks in effect. And then they have a root model, which is Opus 4.5, for example, if you select that model. And that's the reasoning model. So it knows how to use Python in a REPL, the read, eval, print loop recursion process. It knows how to kind of slice these things up and then work on them and kind of stitch them back together at the end. And this is in combination with the Anthropic Claude ability to do what's called compaction or compacting. And you've seen this sometimes if you've gone through a long conversation with Claude, it'll say, wait, I'm compacting our context, because it's reaching the limit of its context window for the core, the root model. And so it needs to make that more efficient token-wise. And so it takes all of the prior history of your chat to that point and any earlier compactions and condenses them into a little package that tells it what it needs to know in order to go forward. But now it starts with a fresh context window. So that's a part of recursion as well. Now, there's a little bit of news here with Cursor, because Cursor just released a technique called dynamic context. And this is focused on this efficiency with relevance, like the same way that Claude Code does compacting in the process of doing these long duration, efforts, working over an hour without guidance, for example. It's doing reasoning and pulling these pieces and parts and operating on them and stitching them together. And you can watch its thinking. That's the root model reporting what it's doing. Well, Cursor has a new method, which is using skills. Okay. And what it does, and skills, by the way, is another way of reducing the token load in a model, right? Because now you put this little skill out there that's a subroutine in effect, that captures what you do when you need to do X, Y, or Z, right? So that's out there as a skill. It doesn't get loaded into the prompt that the reasoning model is working, but it's a tool in effect that you can go out and grab. Well, Cursor has this new token efficient strategy called dynamic context discovery. And that's where agents selectively pull relevant data during inference rather than loading a static context block. And so they can treat tool outputs and terminal sessions as files, summarize past chat history, and selectively load tools via the skills standard. And so putting that into Cursor, and by the way, you can use Claude Code with Cursor. Like you can mount Claude Code inside Cursor. So you get the best of both worlds. You'll get dynamic context, that Cursor just released. You'll also get compaction, which is an anthropic method. And so the efficiency and the long-running duration of the model's ability to operate for you is really optimized in the combination between Cursor and that. And by the way, they're ranking models now by how long they can run in minutes, or what level of complexity of a problem it can handle without intervention and guidance by the user. And this is the efficiency, and this is the advancement of reasoning that we're observing dramatically now, and I think has contributed to the great attention that's being focused on Claude Code right now.
Right. And the article that Brian was talking about in the very beginning by Ethan Mollick, called Claude Code and What Comes Next, in the first paragraph, he describes the thing that he did, and in all caps. Basically, it develop a web-based or software-based startup idea that will make me $1,000 a month, where you do all the work by generating the idea and implementing it. I shouldn't have to do anything at all except run some program. You give me once. It shouldn't require any coding knowledge on my part. Make everything work well. The AI asked me 3 multiple choice questions and decided that I should be selling sets of 500 prompts for professional users for $39. So when you see those, don't buy that, right? Like, don't buy that. But without any further input, it then worked independently. And this is in all caps, Andy, for 1 hour and 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. That is to a certain extent the story. The other part of the story, for what you were just talking about, Andy, with Cursor, is the reduction of token usage, right? So it's cheaper to run. You can do more within your context window because it uses fewer tokens. And I feel sad that I did not include that in my predictions for 2026, because everybody is reducing token usage and trying to achieve the same.
And one of the things that I mentioned there is that, this Cursor dynamic context thing treats some of these things as files and puts them out there as files, either in its own repository or on your desktop, in the case of Cursor. Not your desktop, literally your desktop, but I mean on your machine, on your laptop, or on your desktop computer. Okay, so there's this other thing, which is that if you're going to use Claude Code, there's a sort of a benchmark or best practices method for setting it up. And one of them is you create a claude.md, a markdown file that gives that instance of Claude Code that you're going to use guidance on how you want it to work with you, and what its objectives are, and maybe even what it should and shouldn't do when it's responding to you in the Claude Code interface. So there's that. I haven't built one yet. I'm just still using Claude Code without giving it any sort of overarching guidance, because I'm using Claude Desktop, and I'm asking Claude Desktop to give it I'm doing conversation with Claude Desktop and asking it to give the guidance to Claude Code. And then I basically cut and paste those instructions in the form of commands into Claude Code. But anyway, there's a thing called an opinionated style guide that you can add to Claude Code as a file. And there's a bunch of them that are out there now. And one that I'm going to install, like a Claude.md file, but it's a separate installation, is called Claude Bootstrap. And Claude Bootstrap is a whole map for how Claude Code should really work for you in order to generate really high quality code. Right. At the architectural level, right? It's not saying, hey, you need to add the commas here. It's not at that level of detail. It's more about, what's the process? And if you're going to generate code, I want it also to then be subsequently evaluated and tested, for example. And so the Bootstrap file that you add to the Claude Code sort of infrastructure, and just you're downloading this from GitHub, right? And then plugging it in through the command line interface. That, which I intend to do, is called an opinionated style guide or opinionated thing. I'm not sure what they mean by opinionated, but I think it's because it's an expression of my opinion about how you should operate Claude.
Yes.
And there are other things that you can add to Claude Code that are like that. One of them that Karl mentioned and put into the Slack community that we have is this thing called Ralph, which is also a buzz around Claude Code, because Ralph is also an addition that makes it possible for Claude Code to continuously operate autonomously without you having to intervene at all. And so there's these other packages that you can add to Claude Code. And then there's this whole ecosystem of skills out there that people are building, and you can buy, or just there are free collections of skills. Claude skills are a file called skills.md, but you name the thing after the skill that you wanted to own, and it can call upon that skill. So this is a toolkit that you're going to start building with like Legos. You're going to put this whole thing together. But the objective for me is to put that all together in such a way that I can do what Ethan Mollick just demonstrated in his thing.
And just for people who are thinking we're not making any sense, a skill is a set of instructions that you would need for a certain context. So I like my t-shirts folded at the shoulders and then over in thirds, right? That's a skill that I would want someone to know, but only on laundry day and only after you took the stuff out of the dryer. That does not need to be the whole information about everything that Beth likes and needs to know.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be in the system prompt.
Right? So it's only, so that's the idea of skills. There are pockets of instructional wisdom that get pulled in the relevant context. And I just want to say that my example from the Every workshop was a bad example of relevant context. It was just like, I have this data, do something with it. That is to get you to the point where you're like, oh, cool, I can give super vague data and it can do something really amazing. But when you're doing it for a real purpose, you want to be more directional, like what I read from Ethan Mollick, right? These are the criteria.
By the way, it's up to you to either find a skills, markdown file that does what you want it to do, or to write your own, or Anthropic has provided a skill that is about writing a skill. And so you just ask Claude on the desktop to use its skill, which is writing skills, to create a skill to do this, and then you add that to your Claude Code.
Yeah, and that's okay. So why don't we do this? Because I know I could keep talking about this. We kind of did this show in reverse, right? It's a lot of times, sometimes we'll start with the news and then we'll get into a deeper topic. Today, we inadvertently, just because it was the most interesting going on in my brain, we've now talked for 35 minutes on Claude Code. So that's okay. I think there's a lot more here. Here's what my suggestion would be. You guys tell me if you think you agree. I think we should set up a channel inside our community for Claude Code specifically. Let's create a place in our community where people can share best practices, learn a little bit more. If there's a good YouTube video that somebody perhaps finds and says, oh, this taught me a thing or two, or this is where I found this in GitHub, or wow, I really like this skill, or whatever. I think it'd be nice for somewhere for people to feel like, oh, I can go to this repository of people who are sort of working with Claude Code, including us, Karl, and everybody else. So how do you get there, right? Like if you're listening to the show and you're like, I would like to know that thing. Well, it would be free. So all you have to do is go to the dailyaishowcommunity.com and sign up for our Slack community, which is free. So that will be a channel. It's not set up yet. There's no Claude Code in there. So don't come at me today if you don't see it.
We're still doing the show, guys.
Yeah, we're still live. Yeah, so if you hear this later, but we will set it up, or I'll set it up, or Beth, I don't know, whoever has access at admins, we'll set that up, and it'll just be a place to maybe learn more about this, because I know I want to learn more. Andy, you've already shared a ton. Beth, you've shared a ton. I've learned a lot just on this show. Never mind, I'm going to meet later with Karl. And by the way, I think I proposed to Karl that we record that call, him and I. Because other people have asked the same question of him. And I was like, well, why don't we just record it and put it in the community? So there you go. So go to the dailyaishowcommunity.com if you are more curious about Claude Code and you want to learn alongside us, not because we're so far advanced. I mean, obviously some of us are more advanced than others, but I quite literally have not downloaded it. So you couldn't be more starter than where I am right now. So if that's interesting to you, then, come learn with us. Or at least with me. Okay, I did want to pivot from way back, Andy, on a news story real quick, because you talked about competing, but I didn't want to jump in. It seemed wrong to jump in at that point because we're still talking about Claude Code. But here's my pivot, my weave to a news story. LM Arena, who we all know, lands $1.7 billion valuation 4 months after launching its product. Okay, so this blew my mind, which is why I want to bring it up, because I was like, LM Arena? I was like, what are they doing to get a $1.7 billion valuation? Now,
yeah,
nobody's any stranger to AI companies getting VC funding, so that part didn't shock me. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
I was just saying, what's the revenue model for LM?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly what I clicked into to find out. So, because I was the same way, I'm like, well, they have the arena. And that's really important. Well, a couple of months ago, they in September. So they've gotten this valuation off of what they released in September. New product, AI evaluations. Today, this is from September 16th. Today, we're introducing a commercial product, AI evaluations. This service offers enterprises, model labs, and developers comprehensive evaluation services grounded in real-world human feedback, showing how models actually perform in practice. So basically, this is I think a lot of people should focus on this. LM Arena created a system for competing models and became really, really popular. And well, we saw sort of the fallout of Jan LeCun and Zuckerberg, and Jan LeCun basically saying like, yeah, we kind of fudged it so it looked better on the arena, and benchmarking and things like that, right? So that's been around for a while. Well, LM Arena, which came out of a research project at a university, I have to go back and find out, like Stanford or something. They have all that data. Don't forget, every time like we go in there and we say this one's better than that data is being tracked somehow, right? This was better than this. And of course, we see the result, which is what we want to see. And you may get early access to nano bananas and things like that. But also that data is being tracked. So this makes, now, is it $1.7 billion valuable? I don't know. But what makes sense to me is I go, oh, LM Arena turned around to enterprises and said, oh, we have the data. And so if you have a model, we would be more than happy to run that through our process and give you really interesting insights and analytics based on how your model performs. And by the way, we kind of know what people like. Thumbs up, thumbs down, right? We know what people want to see, so we can help you improve your model. And this will cost you X amount of dollars. That's what they did, Andy. So it's called AI evaluations, and it's only 4 months old.
Yep.
Oh, you're on mute.
And Andy is muted.
So it sounds like they previously would allow any one of the model developers to put their model up on LM Arena, but now, in order to get access to that arena where real humans are evaluating your model, they're going to charge you for that.
You know what? That's a good call out. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know that this necessarily prevents you from putting your model up on the arena, or if this is just an additional service offered to enterprises for helping them evaluate their own models. So whether that also prohibits people from, like, did they just gate their ability to put your model on an arena? It doesn't say that specifically in this article.
Yeah. Maybe the market target is, the very large number of large enterprises that are building their own models, basically tuning or developing new active models, and they want to do a side-by-side comparison. But it seems to me like LM Arena is, you pose a question, you use a prompt in the arena, and the system chooses two models. You don't get to choose those. So they could be having, I don't know how they would figure out for let's take, for example, an enterprise application that's focused on financial analysis. Well, there are very few people going to LM Arena to ask financial analysis questions.
Sure.
Right. So how do they get a match up for the kind of model you as an enterprise want to have an evaluation of? Or maybe they're just expanding the framework that they've developed already, but they're going to collect an active, maybe much smaller group than the people who are, using generalized chatbots, on LM Arena, that kind of response, and getting a pair of responses that they can, compare. Anyway, very interesting.
Right.
That valuation tells you that the VCs who looked under the hood and looked at the business model said, yeah, okay, you're going to make money doing this.
And the last thing I'll say on this, so we can move on to other things, is I just was scrolling down. It says the LM Arena leaderboard will always be shared freely to the world as a public service, and all publicly released models will be evaluated according to the same fair methodology, regardless of any commercial interest. So that was the first thing they said. Then it says, what's next? The public leaderboard, head-to-head battles, and open access to the best AI models will always be here for the community. Your votes, your feedback, your curiosity are what make this platform thrive. We're rolling out more features and more models in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. So that was from September, by the way. So that might be a little dated. But just to answer back to your question about the leaderboard, they're keeping that open to the community as a public service, and this is their paid for model on it, which gives them a run rate, and so they're able to get evaluation off of that because they have money coming in. So very interesting. I went from what? Like, that was my first, I was like, say again? And then I read it and I thought, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. This is about the data and whatever. So yeah, it was a fun sort of news cycle for me in my head this morning, as my initial feedback, I thought was like, get out of here, like, what is going on? And then I read it and I was like, I mean, sure, it's a better idea than a lot of these CES. I know you guys already talked about CES, but the CES, some of the ideas that have come out, which are not much more than a cardboard box and a dream, and they're like AI. So, and they're getting valuations of they're getting 10 million in, investments and stuff. Anyway, I have a couple of news stories, but let's just wrap up here in the last maybe 5-10 with the news stories. So what did you guys have outside of Claude Code, outside of LM Arena for the news stories?
Okay, I've got one little one, and that is, we talked about humanoid robotics. I don't know, yesterday or the day before. We did a kind of a deep dive on that, and today we learned that Google DeepMind. Now, go out and watch the thinking game to understand just how advanced the intelligence behind Google DeepMind is. That's Demis Hassabis's company, and this is this prodigy of intellect who's driving the AI developments for Google DeepMind. They've partnered now with Boston Dynamics. We also talked about the fact that Boston Dynamics and their humanoid robot Atlas, that Boston Dynamics is controlled interest by Hyundai, the major manufacturer behind Hyundai cars and many industrial, these are huge conglomerates, right? The big Korean company that includes Kia, for example. So Kia and Hyundai cars are all manufactured by Hyundai. But Hyundai also has an interest in a wide range of very high level industrial machinery and so on. So anyway, Google DeepMind and Boston Dynamics, read Hyundai as the market space for that, are working together now to advance the Atlas and other variants of the humanoid robotics line that Boston Dynamics has, which was already very advanced. Boston Dynamics was the original that has the robots that originally tethered, learned how to do things like parkour and flips and everything else. And more recently, the advances of AI have allowed other companies to do, like Unitree and others, to kind of replicate similar kinds of behaviors. But you got to believe that Boston Dynamics, which has also a very large military application with their sort of patrol dog robots that can do amazing things.
Spot, right?
Now we're adding that Google DeepMind's capabilities to that, so they have a whole thing that's going on there.
Yeah, I saw some cool. I don't know if you guys already touched on it. I won't do now, but go look at some of the new Boston Robotics Atlas videos that have come out from CES and stuff. Nothing drastically new, but when you look at it and you go, they had it for like Hyundai, I think you were saying, or I'm sorry, whatever car manufacturer it was, but all it was doing, all the robot was doing, the Atlas robot it was like sort of opening up this like rollable tray and taking off these car parts that were like, molded car parts. They're not like steel or anything. And then literally putting them in this other basket. And they're like, this is a real human job that somebody is doing right now. They're taking, they has to like flip open a lid, get these, like, there's like 7 on a tray that probably just went through powder coat or something like that. They're grabbing them and then putting them in this cart. And so you go, the initial thought on that is like, do you need an Atlas to do that? But then when you think of it the other way, I think the real genius here, when you look at this, is that, well, of course you could create an articulating arm that could grab these things maybe all at once and do it faster. Because a lot of times you'll see the Atlas videos are sped up to 2 times. They're not fast. They're repeatable, but they're not fast. But then you go, here's the genius. That same Atlas robot can finish that task. And if there's no other carts coming, it can simply walk over to the other area and start a brand new task that it can also do. And so you're not building one-off robots anymore. You're building a robot that could perhaps do 5, 10, 20, 100 different tasks within a factory floor or whatever it is in that case. So anyway, if anybody hasn't, I recommend going to watch some of the more recent CES Atlas videos to see what I'm talking about. One of them was the one where it's grabbing the car parts and stuff, and you can kind of look at that. And yes, it's very slow, but of course that could be sped up over time. And the one thing I'll say from Atlas that they were pointing out is the reason Atlas is, and there's other robots too, Unitree and others, but the reason it's able to do so much in the way it's able to turn its whole body 360 is, if you'll notice, like old robots always had wires that went across joints. And so of course that could only bend like an elbow. Well, once you remove the wire problem, the connector problem across the joint, that means that joint now at the elbow can spin 360, which is what we see with Atlas. So all of its sort of ball joints and stuff like that are not impeded any longer by external wires. Everything goes through the mechanism, which is why it's able to be so universally helpful in, well, hopefully dangerous situations where we don't want to really be putting humans anyway, or something that's so repetitive that it's actually bad for the body. That turn and twist and grab and put down, although an easy job, can actually cause OJIs and all sorts of down the line injuries for people. So this is a way to get people out of those, more dangerous, I guess, jobs, or jobs that would lead to OJIs and things like that. So anyway, Beth, what do you got?
So I have 2 things. Also at CES, look at so Robert Scoble, Scobalizer at Scobalizer on X, shared a video of a robot playing cards and saying 1,000 sensors per finger. This is Sharper Robotics, so that's a Chinese company, but wild to see the robot not only be able to pick up basically a card, but also be able to sense when it's got enough of it that it can then pull. So the other thing that I have is a Google Classroom released on Tuesday, and I don't think that we talked about it. But you can now generate podcast style audio lessons in Google Classroom using
I love
Gemini,
that idea.
and it's more specific than Notebook LM, right? Like you can have Notebook LM create this podcast style thing, but you're not necessarily able to really control the things that it's going to highlight. In Google Classroom, you can make sure that as a teacher, the things that you really want students to know is part of the podcast style lesson. I also saw something that we'll talk about maybe next week, the ability to use Notebook LM to create graphics novels, graphic stories for your students, right? So, okay, this is a graphic novel about the history thing that we just talked about. This is your podcast, people talking about the history thing that we just talked about. I, in the classroom, wrote something about the history thing that we're trying to talk about. Get more senses, involve more of your senses so you can remember longer.
I love that so much. This is the golden age of classrooms and education. I just cannot wait for all the cool ways that kids are going to be and adults are going to be able to learn in the future. I had two quick stories here because I have to run here in a sec, but one is from Ford. Ford AI's voice assistant is coming later this year, L3 driving in 2028. So I've been talking a little bit about Ford. I would say I'm bullish. I kind of like this CEO going over to China and going like, yep, I saw what BYD is doing. It's embarrassing. We've got to do better. And then, Ford is off to do better. Whether they will or won't, I don't know. But this is a trend we're seeing more. I know Hyundai has done this, I believe, where they're starting to restrict like being able to use either Android or Apple CarPlay in favor of their own systems. Rivian is a great example of somebody who has their own full software. Rivian's, that's probably where a lot of their value is in their software system. Even if Rivian, the vehicle, ceased to exist someday, they could probably sell their software. It's like that good. But anyway, Ford is saying that this is going to be launching later this year in some of their vehicles. And then also level 3 fully autonomous driving or hands-free, eyes-off level 3 autonomous driving feature set to launch in 2027. So big push from Ford. We'll have to keep watching what they're doing, but they're bringing a lot of things in-house in order to control the process from end to end. That's not typically what you see. You usually see they have lots and lots of, vendors and different partners that they work with. And by bringing it in-house, they control a lot more of the software that they're doing. And then the other one, I don't think you guys would have talked about this yesterday. Let me find it. Because it was really kind of the biggest news story that I saw in all the OpenAI launches ChatGPT Health. Did you guys talk about that yesterday, or you did? Yeah. No, but you did. Okay. All right. So we don't referenced
it, but you can say stuff about it if you want.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I like this idea, although I totally understand why some people would be like, hell to the no to this. I think it just depends on who you want to trust and who you don't. And I get that. So I'm not dying on that sword. I do like, I'm sort of Andy, I know you are too. I'm a bit of a health nerd when it comes to like tracking different signals. I like doing that stuff. I would do it anyway. So I have blood work going back many, many, many years. I'm literally going to a DexaFit in my local town tomorrow to get my more updated resting metabolic rate. That's important to me. So I have all these little things. And so I'm not sure how detailed it is. I know it's Apple Health and some of the other main apps for health, but essentially you'll be able to, under a dedicated, they're saying encrypted side of ChatGPT in their ChatGPT Health, that I would be able to personally decide to load that data and then ask questions against it, such as they give an example of, what's been my overall trend of my cholesterol, maybe LDL, HDL, over the last 6 months versus the last 2 years. That's stuff that I'm already asking. So when I saw this release, I go, yep, that's something that I actually think I would use. Not to say that I couldn't probably just upload these. I couldn't upload these sources of data somewhere else, and some other LLM tool couldn't probably make sense of it too. But I get why they're doing it. And OpenAI's point to it was, hey, people are using ChatGPT for health related questions like millions of times. And so it only makes sense for us to heed that call to say, we're using your product in this way. Let's go create something that's got a different level of encryption on it, that's isolated, that's not going to be trained on the data. Again, it's everybody's opinion on whether you believe or don't believe that, and that's fine. But that's what they're saying. And so anyway, this ChatGPT health thing, I think, is really interesting. I think it's an interesting move, and probably honestly a sticky move for how people will stay inside of OpenAI's ecosystem down the road, even as other models maybe clearly surpass the core model that OpenAI has. If you've got wellness data in there, health data in there, if you've got really good long-term memory in there, and you got some other things, well, it starts to become really sticky in your life, and you're going to start going, ugh, I mean, I could leave Salesforce, but that's going to be painful. And so people go, I'll stay. Big organizations go, I'll stay because like the alternative is rough. And so I think that's what I see OpenAI doing over and over again, is just becoming more and more sticky in not enterprise, but individuals' lives, so that that becomes the tool of choice.
It's interesting because we've heard them emphasizing that this is something that they want people to do and that they're moving toward it, right? We haven't heard the same out of Gemini, even though Gemini is like AlphaFold and doing all the research stuff. I just also want to say that we have great mods. So Cloud Channel is up. Thank you, Gareth.
Thanks, Gareth.
And go look at it.
I will be in there. I will be in there to learn. I will be in there to add things that I find interesting all the time. So definitely get in there. Okay, I do have to run. Are you guys cool with us wrapping it up?
Let's wrap.
Yeah. Karl just got here. Hey, hold on. Hey, Karl, you want to wrap up the show for us?
Yeah,
Talk about all the things we just talked about.
Yes, it was a great show, guys. I just got here, so amazing, fantastic.
Thanks, Karl.
Yeah.
We were talking yesterday about authenticity. Karl didn't just roll out of bed, but this is the equivalent, right? Like, hey, it's a live show, everybody. We're
I love it. All right. Well, listen, we are going to wrap it up. Have a great day. Go check out the community. Go check out that new Claude code that Garrett just set up us, the new channel in there. So that's, again, the Daily AI Show community.com. I think people are going to probably be following this. So come join the community. It's free. There's a lot of other good stuff in there already that we've shared along the way, but this will just be a centralized channel for all the goodness about Claude Code. Karl, we spent probably the first 35 minutes of the show talking about it. So that's where this came out of. All right. Everybody have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow on Friday. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Hope you learned something. I know I did. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye.